Hi, my name is Sean Ryder, and I'm currently a senior at UF. My major is horticulture science. Today I'm going to tell you about a situation that happened to me before I had come to college and definitely changed the way I approach situations. First, I'd like to give you a bit of background information. I worked for a company contracted out by a large aircraft maintenance repair operation. We were contracted to basically do the dirtiest jobs, such as wash the aircraft, uninstall the interior for maintenance checks, and a few other nasty jobs. I was around 19 years old when I started this job, and I was about 21 years old in this story. My supervisor's name was Ralph. He was a very nice guy, but he was the kind of supervisor that liked to watch people work instead of physically assisting in completing the job. I didn't like this very much myself, but I figured I wasn't in any position to criticize him either. Now, Ralph had a boss named Mary, and Mary and Ralph didn't get along very well. But Mary was the regional manager of 3 to 4 other crews like us at different aircraft repair operations in the southeast. Now to explain the situation that occurred. It was July, and that summer our crew had been working around 60 or 70 hours a week inside of some very hot hangars. But that didn't bother me as much, as Ralph was having problems consistently calling the other employees and I, telling us what times to be at work. Then one particular day he had failed to give me the correct time to be at work. I decided to call Mary and vent my frustrations about Ralph. In the process of venting about Ralph, I mentioned that Ralph has never helped us work and that he even naps in his office while he's on the clock. Well, Mary asked me to write a letter with dates and times of when Ralph does this and to email it to her. The next day, when making conversation with my mother about my frustrations with my job, she mentioned that her and my dad would consider helping me go to college. This was a big revelation at the time for me, because I had never considered college an option for myself. So with further discussion, her and I figured out a date I needed to turn in my 2 weeks' notice to Ralph in order to start classes in the fall, because I knew at the time he wouldn't let me work around my school schedule. Finally, the day comes that I get to give Ralph my 2 weeks' notice, and he seems very surprised. I explain that I'm still pretty young and think that school would be the right choice for me long term, and he understands. Well, right after I'd given my 2 weeks' notice, the following week I record Ralph's activities at work and email them to Mary. 2 days later, the owner of the company, Jose, and Mary, the regional manager, were at our location and calling the employees into the office for one-on-one meetings. I didn't think too much of it at the time because it was usual for this kind of stuff to happen with so much friction on our crew, and as well with the friction between Mary and Ralph. When I get called into office, Mary and Jose ask me about Ralph, my feelings about the job, and why I had put in my 2 weeks' notice. I explained how Ralph was very hard to work for, and how that I think pursuing my education would be the best option for me. Then they tell me something that totally changed my point of view on the entire situation. Jose and Mary asked me how I would feel if I was a supervisor, they would give me a raise, and if they would work around my part-time school schedule. I was blown away that these two people that I knew had valued me so much as an employee. I of course accepted and started at community college that fall as planned. On that day, it was confirmed to me that it is always best to communicate your needs thoroughly, even if you are certain that the person receiving them won't accommodate or help you. I did eventually have to resign to start at UF, and even though it took me longer to get through school, I will always be appreciative of Mary and Jose's offer and my decision to stay with the company. It did take me longer to finish community college, but I did enjoy the job thereafter a lot more. Well, thanks for listening to my experience, and I'm sure it's not as interesting as some of the other stories, but this situation taught me a lot about the value of being honest with yourself and others about what you want, and that to always listen to what they have to say in return, even if you think your mind is already made up. They may persuade you with opportunities you didn't think existed.